Hello, I'm Catherine and I'm taking you through a series where we look at this book, Small Group, Big Mission. I'm going through each chapter, doing a little video on it to give you a little taste of what is in this book. So lots of you I know are probably following along with this book. That's great. And if you would like to know where to get one, head on over to our resources at fusionmovement.org/resources. And you'll find this book and lots of other helpful things to help you have a small group that is transformational. But today we are talking about multiplying groups. This is a bit of an awkward topic. It's probably the hardest one to speak on because a lot of us don't want our groups to multiply. We want the fruit, we want our groups to grow, we want to see more students become Christians, we want our mates to know Jesus and for them to feel welcomed and invited and to come along and really enjoy our small groups, but we don't want to multiply. Now, that's not everyone. Some people love the idea of multiplication, but for a lot of us, there's a little bit of nervousness around multiplication, about what could happen. Will people be upset? What will it be like if I'm not with my friends? How do we multiply well? And what if we end up multiplying and instead of having two strong small groups, we've just got, well, none? So we're going to be unpacking, how do you multiply well? How do you be intentional and prepare well for multiplication? Not just say, okay, we're splitting today. But how do you work towards movement and multiplication from day one of your small group so it doesn't come as a surprise and it really is an exciting commissioning thing when you do it? So before we kick off into talking about multiplication specifically, I'm just going to speak into the size of your group. So we get a lot of questions about how big should my group be? What is too big? How do I know when to multiply? How many people is too many people? Now, it's not a clear-cut answer where I can say, yep, this many people is too big. I can have my own opinions, but you've really got to figure this out for yourself. But what I would say is you need to be thinking through what number fosters vulnerability? What number fosters a culture of everyone having a part to play? And what number fosters really good friendship and good question asking? If you're too big, there won't be a place for people to be vulnerable. There won't be any space for people to make really good, deep friendships and ask good questions. And there won't really be a space for everyone to have a part to play. You'll have run out of things to delegate. You'll say, oh, there's just too many of us. We can't all have a job this week. So that's what you need to be thinking through. How many is too many? Well, if you don't have any extra chairs and you can't invite a mate along, you're probably too big. You always want to make sure that you've got a chair available so that if someone brings their friend along, they feel welcomed, they feel like they were expected, like the culture is that you invite people, that it's normal when people get invited along, you just pull out another chair and they can sit in it. If you don't have enough chairs for the amount of people in your small group, you're probably not a small group anymore. You're probably a medium group, and that's not what we want to be. So have a think around what number of people really fosters vulnerability, intimacy, delegation, and invitation as well. What number makes you feel like, yeah, I can invite my friend to this and there would be space for them, their voice would be heard. So I think I've settled around 8. That 8 is a really lovely number for a small group. I can fit that many people, kind of squished, but in my living room. So I think 8 is a good number, and then if someone doesn't show up, then you've still got a really good number of people. But when you start to get to 10 people, you should really be thinking, could we split in half? 12 people, could we be 2 small groups of 6? So now we're going to talk about movement and multiplication. The most important thing with this is setting multiplication as the vision from day one. So even if you were a small group of 5 students, of 4 students saying, what is our vision? Okay, we want to become more like Jesus and we want to grow. We want to see others become Christians. We want to see our friends get to know Jesus through this group. And when that happens, when we get too big, we will have to split. And now at that stage, you can recognize that will be a hard time. We probably won't want to do it, but we know that if we don't multiply, there will be no room for any more growth. And we won't really be creating opportunities for our friends to hear the gospel through our small group. So you set that as the culture so that when that time comes and you're looking around the room and there's 10 of you and you're all squished up and someone's on a cushion by someone's legs and you're thinking, we are too big. You then as leaders are ready to say, yep, we knew this day would come. We are prepared for it. Let's multiply. It is time to split into two. And then it's still painful, but it's not as painful as it would be if you were just out of the blue said, right, next week we're going to split. We're going to be two groups now. Don't do that to people. Prepare them well. Make sure that you set it as a vision of the group, that you will be a group that multiplies. And so it might be obvious to you, but something that you need to think through when you are wanting to multiply is who could lead the second group or the third group? Who could be a leader? And so you need to spend some time before you say we're going to multiply in a month's time, thinking through who could be the next leader in this group? Who could lead a group like you do? And now this is probably something that you're going to spend some time chatting with your student worker about. They will be really helpful in helping you think through how to equip someone as a leader and who that could be. They'll know the students as well. But I would say when you are trying to raise a new leader, don't just go for someone that looks like you. Now, I have done this year in and year out. For years, I just chose students that felt like me. I saw myself in them, and those are the people that we're drawn to. It's the people where you think, oh yeah, like they've got something. And a lot of the time, yeah, they've got the same qualities as us. So for me, I was going for quite confident, outgoing, loud students that would tell a good story, would really engage the room in that way. And so I overlooked any of the introverts in my group, the ones who are faithful but quiet, the ones who show up every week and serve but don't necessarily want to do like loud storytelling. They're much happier to just sit in the back and talk to someone and pray for someone who is in need. I overlooked these people for years, and it wasn't until last year that in my eyes, I took a risk on someone who wasn't like me, who was quiet, who I thought, will they be able to lead? I took some time to train them as a leader, and then they took over a small group and it grew quickly, and she saw students become Christians, and I could have never expected that. And I really had to, repent for overlooking her for a whole year, for not seeing what God saw in her, for not seeing the gold that she carried, and for not, because she didn't look like me, for not automatically thinking that she would be a good person to lead a small group. She's done a fantastic job, better than I've ever done. So who are you overlooking? It is really good to pray, God, show me who could lead this group that we're going to multiply out of. Who could lead this next group? Pray those prayers and God might just bring someone surprising to mind. But then when you have that person in mind, when you think, this person will lead, and then this is the little team of two others maybe that will support them, that is like their core team as it were, that will help them lead and make decisions. When you've decided who those people are, you then want to take them through a process of training them well. So it's explaining to them, would you be up for this? Are you excited by this? Leading your own group, going for it, splitting from this group and seeing more people become Christians and seeing other students come to small group that have never come before. And if they are keen, if they want to, then you want to take them round the square. So if you've got this book on you, I would love you to turn to page 79. So we're going to do that now. We're going to turn to page 79. You've got as much time as it takes me to find the number 79. So here we go. And you can see this little square. So there we go. We might even in the edit of this video be able to put a picture of this square up on the screen now so you can watch it. So here is the square. Great, awesome. So the first stage of taking someone round this square is you doing stuff and them watching intentionally. So after you've had that chat with them to say, would you be up for this? Are you keen to, start thinking about taking on this group? And they said yes. You say, great. So now you do stuff and they watch. So now you're involving them more in your role as a leader. So that looks like when you text out in the week, how you follow up with people, how you are like pastoring difficult situations, how you're thinking about including new members or more vulnerable members in the group, and basically all the behind the scenes of what makes a small group tick. They want to watch you as you delegate roles and as you decide who to delegate to each week. But at this stage, they're just watching you, they're just observing, they're just looking at what you're doing. And then the next stage is you do and they help. So you do something and you say, oh, you could help me do this. You might say to them, could you draft the message this week to invite people? Or what would you do in this situation? I need your help with this. Or in the small group, you're saying, look, I'm leading this bit of it, and this person's going to help me do it. If they've never led a Bible study per se before, get them to help at this stage. Though hopefully, if you're delegating well as a leader, they should have already led many a Bible study. So you're thinking more about the behind the scenes workings of your small group. The next stage, as you can see around the square, is you do and I help. So this time you're saying to them, right, you send the message this week, you tell me what to do with this situation, you talk to the student worker about this and feedback to them how it's going, and then you as a leader help them to do that. And then you're on to the next stage, which is basically you're ready for multiplication at this stage. They're trained up, they're doing it, and you're just giving them a little bit of feedback. They are running the show, and you are just saying, great, well done. Next time, think about this. But other than that, that was awesome. So if you've taken them around the square, they should feel a bit more prepared to then take on their own group. So then in your small group, you really want to create a bit of a buzz about this small group. You want to be praying for this new leader and getting the small group laying hands on this person and commissioning them for the next term, for their group to launch. You want to really be praying for them and creating a buzz and a sense of excitement. Not only will this be awesome for the new leader and great for their group if they are declaring and praying for what God could do in the next term, for the students that could come along, for the lives that could be transformed through their group, but it will also be helpful for the members in your group, as they will also be thinking, oh, maybe one day that could be me. Maybe I could start my small group one day. They might start like feeling like, yeah, I really want to lead. I want to take a step up this next term so I could be in that position to be ready to go. It's really good to create a buzz and commission people well. How could you do that with your new small group leaders? How could you send them well? And then it's good to invite your student worker, or if you don't have a student worker, a church leader, or whoever oversees your groups, to come and like watch and see your groups once a term or so. And if you are a student worker watching this, I would say that if your students are multiplying groups, go and join in on their groups, not to like check in on how it's going, but to encourage them and to like call out things in the group and to show them where they're strong and also where they could grow, and give them, yeah, a few pointers, things that you pick up as an outsider that might be helpful. So invite your student worker in to do that. Find a date that works for them. But what would be really good is to raise up overseers for the group. So if you don't have a student worker and they are not the natural overseer of all the small groups, who in your church could you invite to oversee your small groups? Maybe it's a recent graduate, someone who has had experience running small groups, someone who you look up to, maybe someone who's mentoring you. And you could say, would you be up for overseeing these 3 groups, these 3 student groups, and just checking in with us periodically, seeing how it's going? They're a great person to bounce ideas off of. And if you're thinking, oh, I'm not sure if we're ready to multiply, they are a great person to talk to as well. So if you don't have a student worker, do find someone in your church to multiply, to help you multiply your groups and to oversee your group's multiplication. And now you as a leader who has raised up another leader to go and lead a small group, you really want to be investing in that leader pastorally. So regularly checking in, how is it going? Is there anything I can do to support you? What are the highs? What are the lows? And sharing those stories and always offering to pray for them. You want to be there for them as they multiply, because it's quite a vulnerable place when you start a small group by yourself for the first time. They need support, and so especially in that first term of launching, make sure that you're checking in with them even weekly after their meeting to say, hey, how did it go? How are you finding it? How was tonight? What was good? What was bad? How many people showed up? Are you doing all right? How can I pray? And with that, the last thing I'll say is take training really seriously. So if you as a leader are thinking, how do I train a small group leader? I can just take them round the box and sort of show them what I do, but they might not pick up everything. I would say these videos could be helpful. This book, getting one of these in their hands, is helpful. As you're raising up a leader, you want them to be thinking through the values of their small group, the vision of their small group. You want them to be thinking through how to do community well, and for them to think through, how do I then multiply my group and set a vision for multiplication from the first meeting? How do I disciple people well and invite non-Christians in? So these videos could be helpful to pass on as you as you raise new leaders and multiply your small groups. The last thing I would say is that, multiplication is challenging. Some people will find it hard. They'll be upset that they're not with their friends anymore. They'll be upset that things have changed, but it is worth it. How much better is it to have two small groups that are growing, that are seeing new people come along every week, that are seeing people hear the gospel for the first time, than one group that is a bit too big, hard to manage, takes a lot of the leader's energy in just managing who's going where, why isn't this person showing up, how can I delegate it, oh no, they haven't had anything delegated in a long time, to then going, look, we're going to split into two, we're going to multiply, everyone has a role, if you don't show up, something is missing, we're so clear on our vision, why we're doing this, we want to see more people be impacted by the gospel, and we know that that starts with our transformation, with us becoming more like Jesus, so our lives then become an overflow of who he is, which then is an invitation to others into his kingdom. It is an exciting adventure, leading a small group, multiplying a small group, and I would say go for it. Take risks on new leaders, take risks on multiplying. Make sure you have a team that support you, your student worker, inviting them into this journey, but go for it and multiply your group, even if you've never done it before. Set the vision and then multiply. Well, that's the end of this video, and we are nearing the end of our series. I think there's one more video left, which is all about mission, so do plug in to that last video, all about how do we be creative and invite our friends to our small groups, and how can our small groups be a place where, non-Christians can come and feel included and not just be sat there like, what are they talking about? So do join in for that video, but until then, see you soon!